Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Devin and I read books, and this is Devin Reads Books, and today we're going to talk about the book I finished last night, which is Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wang. So I know M.L. Wang wrote Sword of Kaigen. I haven't read that yet, but I loved this. I gave it 4 stars. I thought the story was spectacular. I thought the character work was mostly fine. We're going to get into why. I have some gripes. And I really like a lot of the messaging and the way the messaging was done in the books. But Blood Over Brighthaven focuses on Siona Franin, who is a woman who grew up kind of on the other side of the tracks, but has kind of hoisted herself and worked to the point that she is basically going for a PhD. She's going for a high mage, well, a doctorate, basically. She tests for her high mage exam at the beginning of the book, and it's kind of heavily focused on her experience as a high mage and her assistant Pommel, who is Quen. So Siona is Tyranish. She is from the main town here, Tyran, and then the Quen were these tribes that kind of were spread all throughout the world or continent, who have kind of immigrated to work and live in Tyran. There's a pretty major theme of colonialism and oppression in here, as well as sexism in academia and in the world at large. Overall, the book is really a kind of mid-level fantasy, so there is magic. There's actually really cool magic. That's actually a spellograph. The magic is like basically computer science. But it's like a dark academia fantasy. I don't know that I'd really call it young adult, but it does have kind of a romance trope that I don't think is done very well. We'll get into that. So once Siona starts working at the college, she is assigned to work on the barrier spell, specifically the part of the spell that draws the magic. That's what she specializes in, is sourcing that energy. And she meets Tomo, who actually, the book opens from his perspective, from him first immigrating into the city, because he is a janitor, and the other high mages are kind of bullying her and harassing her and him. She says, you know what, you're my assistant now. And I feel like their relationship is done very, 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 very well. Overall, I have one gripe I'll get into after, but through that relationship is where they really find the mystery. Again, because every dark academia book needs some kind of dark hidden mystery. And that's really only possible in the story through their relationship, both good and bad. There's one scene in particular that I really like where they really butt heads, because he is Quen, so obviously he has a completely different life experience, how he grew up, the religions of the tribes and all of that, to Siona, who grew up within Tyran in a specific sect of their church and their religion. So there's a lot of kind of religious and philosophical debate that happens between the two. So that creates some degree of tension that humanizes Siona, because Siona is kind of introduced as this well past girl boss, almost like narcissistic, sociopathic, my goals are all that matters kind of character. She kind of pushes everyone else away and kind of buries herself in her work, in her pursuit of magic or pursuit of the truth. Magic is very kind of tied to religion in a sense in this book. And Tommel kind of humanizes her and makes her kind of re-examine things, whether some things are worth it and questions like that. So the whole crux of the story does not really happen without their relationship. And they really don't have any kind of romantic relationship, which is one thing I did really like. And I really liked it because it focuses on how their friendship and their mutual respect for each other, and there is some budding attraction, really kind of makes them re-examine how they've been looking at things, right? And I think that's one area where Siona's character falls apart a little bit. So in the beginning, like I said, she is this hyper-focused girl boss, kind of more of a sociopath type of character that kind of shuns everyone away, even people that love and respect her and care for her. Even her, the Professor Brigham, who is kind of sponsoring her work, her project, and has helped her kind of get where she is. She's not overly rude to anyone, but she does kind of cut them off, shove them away. When she's working, she's focused. Nothing else really matters, no matter how nice or respectful other people are. But with Tommel, this is going to be a slight mild spoiler. It's not really that relevant. After their first day working together, they go out and she basically throws herself at him. And it's supposed to be this like embarrassing, kind of funny moment, but it isn't like a direct contradiction to Siona's character, especially when about 80 pages later, at page 135, I have it written down in my notes, she goes on this big old like multi-page internal monologue about like her feelings and how what is she feeling towards Tommel? And it just, why was that not first? It just feels out of sequence. And there's another character, I can't go in too much detail about the events because that is a more moderate sized spoiler. His name is Renthorn. He is by the time we meet him, he is a high mage, but Siona worked in the same lab as him before he became a high mage, when he was still a PhD student. And through almost all of the book, it is implied that he's just like misogynistic, he's just sexist, he's kind of just a jerk. And then towards the end of the book, you find out it is like much worse, but there's no build up at all. There's like no build up. It's just, oh, this guy's kind of a jerk, or he says things that are kind of out of pocket, to events that I'm not gonna really talk about in this scope, because throughout the entirety of the book, all of Renthorn's appearances are like 2 sentences. So we got like no development, and then all of a sudden, bang. And I really don't like that. I don't like that in books. If you were gonna give someone like a bang level role in the plot, in the story, flesh them out a little bit, man. And that hurt. Especially those 2 characters in particular. I mean, character work at large was very hit or miss. Some characters would get just enough introduction and explanation that you could kind of piece things together. Others just would not, and others you talk about twice, like the baker boy. I don't remember his name, but he was someone that was nice to Siona growing up, and she kind of shoved away. Alba is her cousin, and the only reason I remember that is she has all these scenes interspersed throughout the book. And I get that it's not a long book, and Emma Wang probably didn't want it to be a long book, but some of the events that happen are significant enough that they warranted structuring them in a more realistic way, or giving the characters a little more time to develop, a little more time in the oven, right? I mean, overall, that's a very minor complaint, but it would really break immersion every now and then. And the only other complaint I had was there were times where there was like clunky sentences. That's so minor, so minor. Give me good characters and a good story, which this hits the story department out of the park. Spectacular story. I love the ending. Absolutely love the ending. The fact that the character work was very up and down at times, and certain events felt out of sequence, like would have made more sense if we had gotten this monologue before this event, or this action before this. That hurt it a little bit. It's a 4-star book through and through, but I think it could have been 5 stars. Because I think overall the character development between Siona and Tommel, which were most like 80% of what you need for this book to work, was just spectacular. It's just the 20% characters needed a little bit more, honestly. A couple in particular, Renthorn, Professor Brigham. I don't think Siona's aunt, Winnie, I don't think she needed anything else. Alba would have been a little nicer to have been more fleshed. And then there's one other character, Kara, who is Tommel's niece, that I think should have gotten a little bit more time, but she does get a good amount of screen time, so to speak. So I think she's way lower on that list. But it was just odd how inconsistent the character work was at times. And it really kind of broke that experience for me a little bit. Overall, I loved it. Go read. Blood Over Brighthaven. It's probably like the 9th video you've seen on it. I'm really slow to the game here. I hope you like this brief review, and I will catch you next time.